Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to the GMAT GRE workshop session for the practice session for the grammar and vocabulary GMAT GRE verbal. And today we would be looking at a variety of practice questions for the GMAT sentence correction section and for the text completion section of the GRE. I know that a lot of students have been worrying about reading comprehension, text completion when it comes to the GRE, and reading comprehension in the case of both of them, and then sentence correction for the GMAT. We have already practiced reading comprehension and the questions related to it in the first session. And today we would be finding out how exactly are we supposed to go about the grammar section of the GMAT and GRE. So it's going to help us familiarize ourselves with a variety of questions. What exactly are we supposed to expect from the grammar section, and how are we supposed to prepare for ourselves for the questions that are going to be there. So this is the final session, and I've been receiving a lot of questions about sentence correction tips and text completion practice questions. Are we going to do them or not? So this is why I would really want to run through a lot of questions related to both the GMAT and GRE grammar section. So let's take a look at the agenda for today. First of all, we have the GMAT sentence correction practice questions and discussion. And then we have the GRE text completion practice questions and discussion. So as we go on, we are not just going to look at the questions and I'll just announce the correct answer. I will give you a few seconds to figure out the right answer and post it in the chat box. You feel free to share your opinion on what the answer could possibly be. So it's just that I would want you to try it out on your own as well. And, most of the questions that we are going to do, they would be incorporating the grammar rules, the 7 grammar rules that I discussed earlier today. So keep those in mind as well. All right. So let's look at the GMAT sentence correction practice questions, and let's see what's coming in the sentence correction questions for us. And how are we going to be challenged over there? So first of all, I'm going to read out the instructions for you. They are in the pink box that you see. So I'll read them out. The following questions consist of sentences that are either partly or entirely underlined. Select the answer choice that represents the best revision of the underlined text. Choice A duplicates the original version. If the original seems better than any of the revisions, then choose it. So those who think that A could not be an answer because it's duplicating the original version, that's not the case. Sometimes there needs to be no change in the sentence and you stick to the original form of the sentence. So let's look at question number 1. The activism of state citizens who have demanded safer road conditions as well as stiffer penalties for intoxicated drivers have led to a significant decrease in the number of traffic accidents. Now this question, first of all, let's just pay attention to our rule of subject-verb agreement, and let's find out what is it that we need to focus on. Remember, additive phrases, even if there is an additive phrase and the subject goes far away from the rest of the sentence, there is a distance and it becomes unclear towards the end of the sentence that what verb is supposed to go with the subject or what exactly is the subject. So just read the sentence again, the first part and the ending. Focus on the start and the ending. And there is an additive phrase over here also. In fact, there's an additive, I would say it's a clause rather than a phrase. So I'm going to read out the options to you first. Option A, have led to a significant decrease in the number. This is an original option. I'm not going to read it for the rest of the questions. I just read it out so that I could remind you that option A is always going to be a replication of the original text. B, have led to significant decreases in the number. Okay, now here the change is decreases, the word decreases. Then we have C, has led to a significant decrease in the number. And D, has been significant in the decrease in the number. I just realized after reading this option that this is not the one that I'm going to be marking as one of the possible answers because it is overworded, it's confusing me, and it has nothing to do with the rest of the sentence. So let's look at the last option. has significantly decreased the number. First of all, let's find out what's the subject of the sentence. The activism of state citizens who have demanded safer road conditions as well as stiffer penalties for intoxicated drivers have led to a significant decrease in the number of traffic accidents. So the subject of the sentence was the activism of state citizens. Not the state citizens, but the word activism, which is a singular subject. So it has to have a singular verb with it in order to meet the conditions for subject-verb agreement. So in that case, the right options that we could choose could be option C, because it has the verb has, which is a singular verb that goes with activism. And then option D could also, option D, we already ruled it out because we think that it cannot be, it is overworded. So we are left with option C and E. Option A and option B, both of them have the verb have, which does not go with the subject of the sentence. So the right answer is going to be option C, has led to a significant decrease in the number of traffic accidents. So this was about subject-verb agreement. This was about an additive phrase, or you can say there's a whole clause in between. So no, in fact, this is restrictive and non-restrictive information. The activism of state citizens has led to a significant decrease in the number of traffic accidents. Remember, I discussed restrictive and non-restrictive clauses. Remember to recognize them. Now, this information that comes after the comma and ends before the next comma is actually a non-restrictive clause, extra information, which is added to the sentence to make it clearer. So who have demanded safer road conditions as well as stiffer penalties for intoxicated drivers. So this is basically the non-restrictive clause that we have over here. And I've also told you that look for commas when you find that in a sentence, some of the clauses are separated with commas. That means that there might be extra information which is represented in the non-restrictive clauses within the commas. So the right answer is option C, has led to a significant decrease in the number, and we have found out a number of reasons to justify this as a right answer. Let's go to the next question. States now have an incentive to lower the blood alcohol level that constitutes drunk driving by a federal law that withholds highway funds from those states that don't enforce the applicable standard. So this sentence is a little long. Towards the end, you feel like you're lost, but you can go through it again. In fact, it's always a good idea to jump to the options, and maybe then you can read the sentence again and again by putting those options in the place of the underlined phrase or clause and try to replace to see which option seems to be the best one. So let's look at option B. That constitutes drunk driving because a federal law withholds. Option C, that constitutes drunk driving because a federal law withheld. D, which constitutes drunk driving by a federal law that withholds. E, which constitutes drunk driving because a federal law withholds. Notice the comma after driving. Notice the word that and which. So you need to choose the right answer. Now let's look at the subject of the sentence. States now have an incentive to lower the blood alcohol level that constitutes drunk driving by a federal law that withholds highway funds from those states that don't enforce the applicable standard. So obviously the subject is states. So it's a plural subject. They have an incentive to lower the blood alcohol level, and it constitutes drunk driving by a federal law that withholds highway funds. So in that case, if it's a plural subject, so we would want to go with an option that provides us a pronoun that represents that plural subject. So that's the first thing. So states now have an incentive to lower the blood alcohol level, which constitutes drunk driving, which does not, that or which they do not, we have to choose the best one. Look at the subject, it states. So in this case, that is going to be a more appropriate choice. Why? Because it's a plural subject, which usually refers to singular subjects. I hope you can really use which in a lot of sentences and actually look for yourself that which is a pronoun that is specifically referring to singular subjects. So in that case, it means that option D could not be the right answer. Option E could not be the right answer because both of them are using which. Now we are left with option A, B, and C. Let's find out what else do we need to look for. That constitutes drunk driving by a federal law that withholds. That constitutes drunk driving because a federal law withholds. C, that constitutes drunk driving because a federal law withheld. Okay, now this is a federal law. That is going on, right? It has been enforced and it's applicable now. So it withholds, right? It does not. It is not something that was in the past. So in that case, we have to stick to withholds, something that is a continuation. And option C in that case is not going to make sense. Okay, now the next thing that we need to look at. Let's read the sentence again to see what's the third error or what's the third thing that we need to focus on. States now have an incentive to lower the blood alcohol level that constitutes drunk driving by a federal law that withholds highway funds. Okay, now this sentence is now becoming confusing because they have introduced two things and they could have, made it clearer by breaking down the sentence into parts. They're talking about a federal law, they're talking about an incentive. So instead of making it too confusing, let's just put a comma maybe and try to break down the sentences into parts so that it becomes clearer. Now let's read the options that we were left with. We were left with A and B. A is already applicable and it is missing that comma that we need, but B has that comma that is required. Let's look at it, the answer. States now have an incentive to lower the blood alcohol level. That constitutes drunk driving because a federal law withholds highway funds from those states that don't enforce the applicable standard. The rest of the sentence and the beginning of the sentence. Throughout, we see there is a present tense and we need to stick to the present form of the verb, and we need to separate the discussion about the federal law with a comma because otherwise the sentence is mixing up a lot of facts. So the right answer in that case is going to be option B. We are discussing an incentive to lower the blood alcohol level, and then we need to introduce we need to talk about the federal law. So maybe introduce that in another clause. I think that is the best way to go about this sentence. So option B is going to be the right answer. Let's look at the next question now. Question number 3. Unlike other primates, which are born with fully formed craniums, a newborn human baby's cranium consists of 8 bones that take years to fuse together fully, allowing the brain to grow much larger during those early years. Okay, so in this sentence, we've got some options. Let's go through them. Option B, fully formed craniums. A newborn human babies have craniums that, as you can see, the mistake is very clearly evident in front of us. It's a newborn human babies. Cannot be used with a plural noun. So first of all, the use of the article is wrong. And option B is cancelled out. Option C, a fully formed cranium, a human baby's cranium. Okay, now if we read it out with option C, once again, it's going to be cumbersome to understand this sentence because let's just see. Unlike other primates, which are born with fully formed craniums, a fully formed cranium, a human baby's cranium consists of 8 bones that take years to fuse together fully, allowing the brain to grow much larger during those early years. Okay, now this sounds more or less like the right option, but let's find a better one. Maybe that is going to make more sense. Maybe we have better answers in option D and E. Let's see. Okay, option D, fully formed craniums. A human is born with a cranium that, okay, unlike other primates, which are born with fully formed craniums. A human is born with a cranium that. Yes, a human is born with a cranium that. Now, this is something that's making sense, and it's look at the rest of the sentence. A human is born with a cranium that consists of eight. So, what was wrong with option C? A human baby's cranium consists of. So, this option D is slightly clearer, and it is following a logical sequence. As you can see, a human is born with a cranium that consists of eight bones that take years to fuse together fully, and then the rest of the explanation. And option E, a fully formed cranium, the cranium of a newborn human baby. Okay, so we are talking about how a human is born with a cranium, and what is it that makes the human baby's cranium different. So in this case, the most appropriate choice is going to be option D. Why? Because if you look at the question, unlike other primates which are born with fully formed craniums, okay, let's just wait. Primates is a plural subject. So first of all, we have to keep this in mind. Then the next part of the sentence says, which are born with fully formed craniums. Okay, now we need to change from, if we think that C, D, or C or E are the right answers, look at the example, the original sentence. It says fully formed craniums. There's a plural word, craniums, and we are comparing it with primates, which is a plural subject. So once again, there needs to be consistency within the sentence. If we are comparing primates, then there has to be the word craniums instead of cranium, right? In that case, option C and E would not make sense because both of them start with a fully formed cranium. Okay, so this is about comparisons also, the rule that we have earlier discussed in the 7 grammar rules. So in this case, option C and D are definitely not the right answers. So option D is going to be the most appropriate choice, and let's just see why it's the right choice. Why not B? Fully formed craniums, we have a plural subject, but the problem was a newborn human babies have. I've already told that this does not sound right. And what was the problem with the original one? A newborn human baby's cranium. Look at the possessive nouns, the use of the apostrophe. It's wrong. A newborn human baby's cranium. Well, it's not exactly wrong, but I thought it's a plural one. So fully formed craniums. A newborn human baby's cranium consists of. Yes, so this is something that we need to focus. Look at the portion after the comma. It says human baby's cranium. Once again, they're referring to just one singular cranium. So this means when we are comparing craniums with primates, it has to be a plural. There has to be a plural sequence of the nouns. In this case, this is only possible with option D, where we are talking about fully formed craniums. A human is born with a cranium. If we are referring to singular subject, then we need to mention that we are talking about a human that is born with a cranium. So specify that a human is a singular subject and then talk about its cranium, right? So this is how you look at, you break down the sentences into parts, and we can find this out with the help of the rules that we have understood, the 7 grammar rules. All right. Question number 4. With the boiling temperature of minus 195.8 degrees Celsius, nitrogen composes approximately 78% of the volume of the atmosphere. Okay, now this sentence, with the boiling temperature is a subject. In fact, let's see. With the boiling temperature of 195.8 degrees Celsius, nitrogen composes approximately 78% of the volume of the atmosphere. Okay, so let's see. To me, this sounds pretty good. I mean, I don't seem to find a mistake over here, but let's see, maybe one of the options are going to sound right, and maybe is going to sound right, and maybe we could choose that. So let's see. Option B, nitrogen is composing the volume of 78% of the atmosphere. Okay. Option C, the atmosphere is approximately 78% nitrogen as measured by volume. Then D, nitrogen is composed of 78% of the atmosphere's volume. E, The atmosphere is composed in terms of volume of 78% nitrogen. E is overworded. We do not need to put in terms of volume in a separate phrase and, show it as if it's a non-restrictive clause. It's not, because we are talking about two calculations over here. So we need to explain that the other one is the volume, right? In that case, in terms of volume could not be a non-restrictive clause. So option E is definitely not correct. Let's look at the rest of the options. Nitrogen with a boiling temperature of minus 195.8 degrees Celsius, nitrogen is composed of 78% of the atmosphere's volume. Okay, and let's look at option C. The atmosphere is approximately 78% nitrogen as measured by volume. Once again, it's confusing. We're talking about volume after the comma, which just by the way has to be with that 78%, the measurement of the volume. It should be specified with that this is a measurement of the volume. Why do we mention it by separating it with a comma? We are talking about the volume, so why not just keep it in one sentence? And then B, nitrogen is composing. Okay, now this is a bit of a challenge. If you see the question, it says with a boiling temperature of minus 195.8 degrees Celsius. Boiling temperature. You might think that option B could be the right answer because the first verb is in a present continuous form. It's boiling temperature. But that's just the name of the kind of the temperature. It doesn't have anything to do with being a verb, right? This is actually a noun in this sentence. So in that case, option B is not going to be correct because although we are talking about boiling temperature, but it's a noun and not a verb. So nitrogen is composing the volume of 78% of the atmosphere. This does not make sense once again. Nitrogen composes sounds better. It makes sense over here. It sounds right to the ears. And then option A, nitrogen composes approximately 78% of the volume of the atmosphere. I think this is just going to remain as it is. This is the right answer. And if you feel there needs to be a change, then I think from my perspective, this is absolutely correct. The sentence is clear. The mention of volume is done in another independent clause, and it has been mentioned very clearly. Nitrogen composes is also correct. Approximately, without using the word approximately, the sentence might not be correct. So therefore, the word should be there. 78% of the volume of the atmosphere. So I think this is what sounds absolutely right. So we'll just go with the first answer, the original answer. That's A. Question number 5. The previous two questions were tricky, and this question is rather easier. So let's see what this is all about. For homes in typically colder geographic regions, it is particularly important to have effective and efficient heating systems. A very simple sentence, and the underlined part is a dependent clause. The rest of the sentence is a independent clause. It is an independent clause because it's after the comma, and it could be written as a separate sentence also. But the first part, the underlined part, is a dependent clause because it connects with the rest of the sentence. So let's see what are the options. Option B, for people in homes in typically colder geographic regions. Okay. I think it's overworded, and we are talking about homes and their heating systems. We are not referring to people here having any sort of heating systems. So B is not the right answer in that case, because we have to stick in the context of the sentence, the subject under discussion, and that is homes, right? So B could not be the right answer. Then C, for homes in typically cold geographic regions. Okay. Right. D. Okay, now why does C seem to be the right choice? If you look at the original sentence, it says for homes in typically colder geographic regions. Okay, we are trying to compare it with with something, but we do not know what geographic regions are we comparing over here. So the problem over here is that we have talked about comparison, but it doesn't show in the rest of the sentence. Our major focus is on having efficient heating systems. So where exactly are we making a comparison over here? In that case, the word should not be colder, it should rather be cold. Okay, and for homes in typically cold geographic regions, it sounds about right. Let's look at D. People in typically colder geographic regions. Once again, the problem is with the word colder. For me, it's bothering me because when I look at the sentence, yes, there are geographic regions, a lot of them, but in this sentence, I do not really see a comparison happening between cold and colder geographic regions. So I would rather want to stick with the word cold. Then E, homes in typically colder geographic regions. So the right answer for this is definitely going to be option C, for homes in typically cold geographic regions. This is perfectly fine. And the only problem was with the word cold. And it has colder, it has to change back to cold. Because, like I said, you have to see where is the comparison happening. And look at the subject, look at the rest of the sentence, find out what the sentence, what message is the sentence giving out, and then see if the rest of the functions of the sentence, are they making any sense? If there's anything extra, anything that does not make sense, just fix it. Okay, so this was about sentence question number 5. Another example that we have, question number 6. Inside the glove compartment were legal documents, pictures, and there were a few napkins from the coffee shop, but no gloves. Okay. Inside the glove compartment were legal documents, pictures, and there were a few napkins from the coffee shop, but no gloves. We know that we have in the beginning introduced that we're talking about the place inside the glove compartment, and this is where we are referring to. We know the location. So why is there a need to add extra words to the sentence and write down and there were a few napkins when we are using commas to separate things in a list? Why do we need to add these words and there were a few? So let's get rid of these words, and that is the only thing that sounds wrong to me at the moment. Let's see if there's anything else that we need to correct. Okay, let's read the options. And there were option B, and there were a few napkins from the coffee shop, but not any gloves. Okay. C, and napkins from the coffee shop, no gloves were there. This is wrong. No gloves were there is after a comma, which does not make sense. We are specifying what was inside the glove compartment. There were legal documents, there were pictures, there were napkins from the coffee shop, but there were no gloves. So this is what the sentence is telling. So let's just see what is more simpler to understand. Option D, and napkins from the coffee shop, but no gloves. E, and napkins from the coffee shop, there were no gloves. Okay, now this is also wrong. There were no gloves. It seems as if this is a whole new sentence because it's beginning with there, and in case of option C also, no gloves were there also seems to be a whole new sentence. It's not making sense with the rest of the sentence. So in this case, the right answer is going to be, let's read out option D first and see if it fits properly. Inside the glove compartment were legal documents, pictures, and napkins from the coffee shop, but no gloves. Yes, so this makes sense. There is extra information about something that's missing, and it's coming after the comma. But look at the clause that's there. No gloves were there, but not any gloves. There were no gloves, but no gloves. What was wrong with the original option? The first part of it, and there were a few. This was becoming overworded. Then with option B, the problem was, but not any gloves. We do not need the words not any to make it longer. The meaning becomes very clear with the words, but no gloves, right? So let's just stick to but no gloves because this is crisp and concise. Remember, in English language, overworded sentences are highly discouraged. You have to practice sentences in a way that they are to the point, they are succinct. There is no extra information, in the sense that the words, you're not talking about the same thing by changing the words, and you're just, beating around the bush. Don't do that. The best way to go about it is that keep your sentences to the point. Don't make a sentence too long. Sometimes connecting an independent and a dependent clause, that shows your talent as a person who knows how to write sentences in English. But if you are very confused about how to connect different clauses in a sentence, try to write simpler sentences. Try to keep your sentences to the point. The subject should be specified clearly. The rest of the functions in a sentence should meet the conditions of the grammar rules. So keep these things in mind, and I'm sure that you guys are never going to make a mistake, but just avoid overwordness. Keep in mind the economy of expression when it comes to you choosing words. All right, so this was question number 6, and the correct answer was but no gloves. Keep this in mind. And okay, question number 7. Even though I have seen the movie countless times, I still laughed when the sheriff throws his mug. Okay, now when I read this sentence, I pointed out what's wrong with it. Can you guys point it out? I'm sure some of you have already pointed out the error. The sentence, throughout the sentence, you can see it's in the present tense. Even though I have seen the movie countless times, I still laughed when the sheriff throws his mug. When you're telling about the scene of the movie that you find funny, you are referring to, you are describing it in present tense. But the problem over here is that you have used a past tense verb for yourself. So that's the problem, and you need to fix that. So let's look at option B, C, D, E. Option B, laugh when the sheriff throws his mug. Okay, this seems to be correct because at least they have changed laughed to laugh. So verb consistency, remember the rule. And then C, laugh when the sheriff threw his mug. Okay, now this scene, he is watching it, repeatedly. I mean, whenever he watches the movie, he always laughs at this scene. So laugh when the sheriff threw his mug, it sounds as if he has just watched the scene a while ago and he's describing it in the past tense. Remember to read the beginning of the sentence if you think that there is something that's confusing. Even though I have seen the movie countless times, I still laugh when the sheriff threw his mug. Does not make sense. When the sheriff throws his mug, remember he's referring to watching the movie countless times. So he always watches that scene and he laughs. In that case, it can't be threw his mug. It has to be throws his mug, which seems to be right. D, laughed whenever the sheriff throws his mug. Once again, laughed is wrong. E, laughed when the sheriff will throw his mug. This is also wrong because this is going somewhere in the future tense, whereas he's talking about watching the movie a countless times and he's referring to it in the present tense. Okay, so the right answer is going to be option B, laugh when the sheriff throws his mug. Simple. Question number 8. Yesterday I fell down the stairs and then tried to act like I did so on purpose. Okay, so what's wrong with this one? Yesterday I fell down the stairs and then tried to act like I did so on purpose. Well, it seems to be fine, but let's see if we have better choices with us. Option B, yesterday I fell down the stairs. I tried to act like I did so on purpose. C, I fell down the stairs yesterday. I tried to act like I did so on purpose. Okay. D, after I fell down the stairs yesterday, I tried to act like I did so on purpose. And E, falling down the stairs, I tried to act like I did so on purpose. Okay. E cannot be the right choice because it's not telling us anything about, first of all, it's not telling us falling down the stairs, I tried to act like I did so on purpose. This is confusing. When exactly did this happen? So the adverb of time is missing over here. So somehow it's misleading the sentence. Falling down the stairs, I tried to act like I did so on purpose. We cannot actually exactly figure out when did this happen. So E in this case is not the right answer. Now D, after I fell down the stairs yesterday, I tried to act like I did so on purpose. It sounds right, but it's overworded. And the next thing that we need to focus on is this semicolon. Somebody asked me in the last session that can we expect corrections in commas, semicolons. So this is a situation where you can see that a semicolon is not used correctly. Um, a semicolon usually connects two independent clauses. In this case, after I fell down the stairs yesterday is a dependent clause uh, with the rest of the sentence after the semicolon. So this is wrong also. And same is the case with option E, also a semicolon. Notice that. So it's also used incorrectly. Falling down the stairs, it is just a phrase. So it cannot be connected with the rest of the sentence with a semicolon. Remember, a semicolon, either it separates items in a list that are described in more detail, or it separates two independent clauses. Okay. So let's look at option C. Yesterday I fell down the stairs. Okay, I fell down the stairs yesterday. I tried to act like I did so on purpose. Why are we separating it with a comma? First, he says that I fell down the stairs yesterday, and then he says, I tried to act like I did so on purpose. He can just describe himself. I mean, he can just describe this incident with one I also. So that is why C is going to be the wrong choice. B, yesterday I fell down the stairs. I tried to act like I did so on purpose. Okay. Once again, this is also not making sense because it says, yesterday I fell down the stairs. I tried to act like I did so on purpose. A lot of I's, I would say. So these are pronouns that maybe they sound like extra pronouns and we do not need them. So yesterday I fell down the stairs. I tried to act like I did so on purpose. So look at the I's. We do not need too many of them. We are just referring to a person and the stairs. So the subject is very clearly stated, which is why we do not need these I's again and again. So option A is going to be the right choice for us. It's perfectly correct. Yesterday I fell down the stairs and then tried to act like I did so on purpose. Why did he add another I in the end? Because look at this part of the sentence. And then tried to act. Who tried to act? Not the stairs, but he himself. So he has used the pronoun I over here to make the pronoun antecedent relationship very clear. All right. So this was question number 8. Question number 9. For every song that is a hit, it is critical to have a quality beat and quality lyrics. However, most companies hire professional producers and songwriters. Now, what is something that we need to look at? Yes, this is a transition word, a connective. Perhaps we need to change it. Maybe this is fine. For every song that is a hit, it is critical to have a quality beat and quality lyrics. However, music companies hire professional producers and songwriters. However, we use for contradictory statements. So this seems more like a reason to the previous statement. Don't you think that? For every song that is a hit, it is critical to have a quality beat and quality lyrics. Music companies hire professional producers and songwriters. Why do music companies hire professional producers and songwriters? Because of this reason that it is critical to have a high beat and quality lyrics. So have a quality beat and quality lyrics. So that is why it cannot be C. C means the same as however. It is a contradictory transition word. So nevertheless and however are same in meaning. It cannot be and because it's not making a connection over here and not referring to the first part of the sentence as a reason for the second part of the sentence to take an action, right? So that is why it cannot be D, it cannot be E. Once again, E is a contradictory connective. And then we are left with option B, therefore, and that's the right answer. We can read it and we can see that this seems to be the right choice. Okay, so the last question for sentence correction, and then we move on to the GRE text completion questions. Natural disasters have been increasingly affecting nearly every part of the world in the past decade with catastrophic tornadoes, hurricanes, and tsunamis. Okay, So past decade with catastrophic tornadoes, hurricanes, and tsunamis. A, okay, I'm not going to read out the original option. Let's look at B, C, D, E. Has been increasingly affecting, have been increasingly affecting, and then will be increasingly affecting, and then finally will be increasingly affecting. I'm sure most of you must have identified the error, and that is in spelling. So this is another situation that might come in the sentence correction section, where you might be asked to correct the spellings also. So affecting is, we all know it is a noun, whereas with an e it is a noun, and affecting with an a, or affect with an a, it is a verb which could be changed into affected, which could be changed into affecting. So first thing, option A is not possible. Option B is not possible because the wrong use of the word affecting is there. It is a noun. It cannot be changed into affecting. A, B, D are wrong answers. Now we are left with option with option C and E. So natural disasters have been increasingly affecting nearly every part of the world in the past decade with catastrophic tornadoes, hurricanes, and tsunamis. And then E, will be increasingly affecting. This has been happening. It says that this has been happening from some time, so it cannot be used as something that's going to happen in future, which is why option E is wrong, and we'll be left with only option C. Now I'm going to go to the GRE text completion practice questions, and then we'll have a short Q&A session also with, and I'm going to take a look at the questions that you guys have asked. All right, so this is what a GRE text completion section looks like. It is more about your vocabulary. Your vocabulary is tested over here. Please do not be overwhelmed with this section. You come across all sorts of challenges, and this is one where everything is going to be perfectly fine if you have practiced enough, if you're using the resources to practice vocabulary. Yes, you might have to revise some words also, but at the end of the day, like we have discussed in the previous sessions also, the ability with which you handle the questions, the way you handle pressure, that is going to determine how you're able to do the questions, because sometimes you don't know the meaning of the word and you still make out what is going to be the right choice. So just make sure that you take it easy, one question at a time. Please do not be bothered about a word, about the fact that I do not know the meaning of all of these options. How will I figure out the right answer? Take your time to understand, to decipher the meaning of the question. Let's look at the instructions first. Choose the correct word from the choices given for each blank to best complete the text. Now, this is number one. The success of the business venture dashed his expectations. He never thought that the firm would prosper. Okay, so it seems as if this is something that surprised him, right? So in this case, confirmed his expectations. And in the other part of the sentence, in this independent clause, it says he never thought that the firm would prosper. Notice the use of the semicolon, by the way. The first part of the sentence that is separated with a semicolon is also an independent clause, and the rest of the sentence is also an independent clause. So in this case, the word that seems to be the most appropriate choice is going to be belied. And why so? Because confirmed is not going to make sense in the context of the sentence. And what exactly was the person thinking? And then nullified. Nullified, I would say it means invalidate, right? So invalidate his expectations. Somehow it does not make sense. Belied in this context makes more sense because this happens when something belied means to contradict something, when something that you believe, you fail to give its impression in the correct way, so fail to fulfill or justify. So his expectations were not met. So in this case, it could be belied. It cannot be nullified, it cannot be fulfilled. And lastly, we have ratified. Ratified means to approve something, to confirm something. In this case, his expectations were belied. So this is going to be the right answer. Number two, the journalist dashed the efforts. Now notice the two blanks that we have over here, and we have the options for them. The journalist dashed the efforts of the drug squad to control drug peddling, claiming that they had actually dashed the problem. If you read this part after the comma, it says claiming that they had actually dashed the problem. It seems as if the journalist is trying to blame it on the drug squad, that they have not done anything about drug peddling that is still on the rise. So in this case, let's look at the options. See, we can understand the meaning of the sentence just by reading the phrases given in the sentence. So sometimes don't worry about the vocabulary. Just focus on the meaning of the sentence and rest of it is going to make sense to you. Let's look at the words. A, commended. No. Like I said, it's not making sense because this is in a negative perspective. The journalist is pointing out that they have not wholeheartedly done anything about drug peddling. Then B, deprecated. Okay, deprecated, it seems like the right choice because it identifies that it's expressing the journalist's disapproval, the disappointment that he has against the drug squad, right? Something that he has against them. Then C, noted. Does not make sense. The journalist noted the efforts of the drug squad. There were no efforts, apparently, according to him, which is why the later part of the sentence is explaining why the claim was not meant to be. And then blank 2, claiming that they had actually dashed the problem. Maybe they claimed that they had actually finished the problem, they had wiped out the problem. So delineated, that's the first option. Delineated means to explain something or to describe something, right? And then we have mollified. Mollified means basically to calm down the situation. They had actually calmed the problem. Okay, maybe this is the right choice because obviously if you look at the first part, it says deprecated the problem. He was deprecated the efforts. He was of a negative view of the drug squad. So in that case, there was nothing done about the claim that they were making. So the right choice could be mollified. It makes sense. And then the last word is exacerbated. They were claiming that they had, calm down the situation and things were looking good. But exacerbate means to further worsen the situation, to make matters worse. And in this case, exacerbated does not make sense. So the right choice is going to be, it's going to be mollified. Okay. It's going to be exacerbated because obviously he's claiming, this is the journalist that's claiming that they have actually exacerbated the problem. So out of mollified, and see, I also got confused. Now, if you read the sentence once again, the journalist dashed the efforts of the drug squad to control drug peddling, claiming that they had actually dashed the problem. So it was the journalist who was actually making the claim. So I read out the sentence just now and I found out that they had actually worsened the problem. So it's going to be exacerbated. Mollified means to calm down, so it does not apply over here. So this is going to be the right answer. Okay, so let's move on to number 3. He was normally entirely dash, but in the embarrassing situation in which he found himself, he felt compelled to dash. Okay, so we have the options over here. Okay, let's look at the sentence first. He was normally entirely dash, but in the embarrassing situation in which he found himself, he felt compelled to dash, compelled to do something serious, right? So let's look at the options that we have. So first of all, we have blank 1, equable, considerate, forthright. And for blank 2, we have concede, prevaricate, and capitulate. All right, so in this case, the right answer for the first one, he was normally entirely. Okay, so what exactly do you think would be the right choice? It has something to do with him being calm about problems, and it refers to that. But which word over here exactly refers to his situation? So the right answer in this case could be, what does equable mean? Equable mean that you're calm about something, you're composed about something. Considerate means that you're kind, you understand how somebody feels, and you consider somebody's situation in a serious manner. And then forthright, he was very straightforward. He was very open about it. So in this case, we can say that maybe forthright is the right choice, or maybe equable is the right choice. But let's look at the blank 2 to further confirm our answer. Concede. Concede might be a new word for some people. It means to acknowledge something. And then we have prevaricate. It means uh, to talk about something, or to say something, to express something in a very ambiguous manner. And then we have capitulate, to surrender, to give in. So in this case, the first choice, let's look at the sentence again. He was normally entirely, let's stick to the word forthright, but in the embarrassing situation which he found himself, he felt compelled to. Okay, in my opinion, the first answer has to be forthright, because the only option that goes with forthright could perhaps prevaricate, to talk about it in a very ambiguous manner, to be very discreet about it. So maybe that is what the person was like. So in this case, it's going to be prevaricate. He was a person who was very direct, very frank, and straightforward about things. But in this situation, he found himself that he felt compelled to not being able to express his problems clearly. Number 4. The professor became increasingly dash in later years. Now, you can notice that some of the questions have 2 blanks, some of them have just a single blank, and some of them even have 3 blanks. So the situation in this text completion, every question's nature is different. The professor became increasingly dash in later years, flying into a rage whenever he was opposed. So this is a negative trait about the professor. Okay, taciturn, voluble, subdued, contrite, irascible. See, now this is a challenge that you have to perhaps focus on. If we look at the words over here, they're all sort of new for us. Maybe some of us knew the meaning know the meaning to some of them. Taciturn means somebody who's very quiet in general, not talkative at all. Then voluble means somebody who's very talkative, very expressive. And subdued means somebody who's depressed. And contrite means remorseful, somebody who's regretful about his situation. Irascible, short-tempered, somebody who gets irritated very easily. The professor became increasingly irascible in later years, flying into a rage whenever he was opposed. So this is something that is talking about his mood, not about if he's talkative or if he's quiet, not about him being regretful about something. So, and not about him being depressed about something. It is more about his rage, his anger that was increasing whenever he was opposed. So in this case, he was becoming irritable, he was irritated, he was the kind of person who became short-tempered with time, so E is going to be the right choice. Okay, so these are the kind of questions where you need to think, and yes, you are challenged over here. This is a taxing question, but at the same time, I'm sure that there will be some of them that you would hardly have a clue for. So in this case, you have to use your I can say that use your gut feeling. I think that works best for such questions. Number 5, many 17th century buildings that are still in existence have been so dashed by successive owners that the original layout is no longer dash beneath the sometimes much needed, but usually dash attempts to personalize or improve. Okay, now we have 3 blanks. The sentence is very long, and it will take us some time to understand it. So the best way to go about it is paraphrase it in your mind. Maybe you could paraphrase it in Urdu in your mind to make the meaning clearer. This always helps, especially in case of long sentences, because sometimes you have paragraphs. So many 17th century buildings that are still in existence have been so dashed by successive owners that the original layout is no longer. Something about the successive owners that they have probably changed the buildings in some way or the other, right? So maybe we have to think of a word. Okay, let's look at the options for blank 1. Preserved, transmogrified, decimated. Now, in this case, preserved could not be the option, at least, because if you read the sentence, it says that the original layout is no longer. It does not exist anymore. So it can't be A. Transmogrified. Transmogrified, guys, it means that to transform something in a very surprising manner, to beautify it, and decimated means to destroy something, to, it just change its look and, remove something from it. So this is decimated. Okay, let's read the rest of the sentence and see which one is better, transmogrified or decimated. By successive owners that the original layout is no longer dash beneath the sometimes much needed, but usually dash attempts to personalize or improve. The last part of the sentence tells that the change that has happened is not bad for the 17th century buildings. It has improved the overall look of the building, right? So this means it could be transmogrified but not decimated. So this is a we will say positive term that we could use over here, because it shows that the successive owners made an effort to make the buildings look better rather than just destroying their appearance. So this answer is going to be transmogrified as the first for the first blank. And let's look at blank 2. By successive owners that the original layout is no longer discernible, extant, enshrouded. Discernible means visible, and extant means something that's surviving, that's remaining, maybe the opposite of extinct. And then enshrouded means to hide something from view. So, okay, so it could be either discernible or it could be enshrouded, because obviously when we talk about the look of the building, it cannot be extant. Extant means that it's surviving. The original layout is no longer dash beneath the sometimes much needed, but usually dash attempts to personalize or improve. So the right answer in this case, it's going to be discernible, because it's no longer visible. Because look at the preposition that follows, beneath the sometimes much needed. So it's like a layer that's maybe hidden beneath the new layer that's there on the building. So indiscernible makes more sense, and enshrouded does not make perfect sense over here. So let's look at the last one. But usually dash attempts to personalize or improve. Something positive about these attempts. So maybe we could say, okay, adept. Adept is a word that shows proficient, skillful. Then grotesque, it means to make ugly or distorted look. And then tasteful, something that that beautifies another thing. So maybe a tasteful attempt means something that is a success to make another thing look better. So in this case, the right choice, let's read the sentence again. By successive owners that the original layout is no longer discernible beneath the sometimes much needed, but usually dash attempts to personalize or improve. Look at the word sometimes much needed. Even though the change is needed for the building to survive, to remain over there, but usually dash attempts. The attempts are rather failing. Maybe they're not successful. So now we tend to make the meaning clearer, that the attempts were not very successful to personalize or improve. See, now I also understood the meaning, and I would say that the right answer for this question is going to be grotesque. So that's about it, guys. Now I'm going to look at your questions, and I'll be answering those. But of course, we are running short of time, so I'm just going to pick out and choose the ones that seem the most useful for everyone. Okay. What is the suggested time to solve one MCQ in case of sentence correction? There's no particular time frame. I would say that sometimes you can answer a question in seconds. Sometimes it takes a minute or so. So it depends on the nature of the question. The goal of a candidate is to complete the entire test in time. So if you're doing that, if you're practicing in test-like conditions and you're looking at the questions, there would be difficult, there would be easy questions. Given that situation, there is no time frame. It's all on you at the end of the test. How much have you attempted? So in this case, I cannot really suggest that what is the suggested time. All I can say is that it depends on the nature of the question. Like, we were stuck on some of the questions, so we had to give them time. Some of them were challenging. So in this case, it depends on your understanding of the sentence, of the corrections that you need to make. Okay, should we not avoid comma before because? Not in all situations. Because is also, it's not just it's a connective. It's not just a word that is used to uh, connect. It's used to connect two sentences. It is actually a word that sometimes acts as a transition also to give a reason for something. So it can be used in situations where you are trying to explain something in more detail. So there might be a comma before because also. Okay. Okay. So there's another question. You said vocabulary improves over the years. Since we don't have that, can you please give us a tip to get through GRE? All right. Uh, hmm. So what I can say about this answer is that vocabulary, it does not improve over the years. Well, it depends on your ability, how much effort are you making to improve it. For me, my vocabulary can become flawless if I practice these questions in one day. I mean, if I keep on practicing at least 20 questions in a day, I get my hands on a variety of words and I make a list out of them. So I can maybe ace this section if I practice at least 20 questions every day. Maybe I can get used to a variety of words, and it won't be very hard for me to decipher the meaning of a new word that is there. So it all comes with practice. And the tip to get through GRE, especially vocabulary, I would say that we have already talked about this, but just to point it out again, that do the diagnostics for GMAT, for GRE, for GAT, and then you will realize what was it that you were able to handle best. If you think that you did not feel that you were in a very tight situation when you were going through the GRE vocab section, go for GRE. If you think that you found the vocab section very difficult, go for GMAT or GAT. It's up to you how you want to attempt it. And then the most important thing, um, like Harun has already discussed this with you guys as well, that 6 weeks are more than enough to determine how you're going to perform in a standardized test. It all comes from preparation. I just gave you an example that if I practice these text completion questions every day, even if I do 10 out of a lot of questions, 10 questions every day, in the next 1 week, I will get used to the method of handling such questions. So it all comes with practice. And that's the only suggestion that I would like to give you, that instead of revising the vocabulary, first practice the questions and then go to the vocabulary list that I have shared. Maybe then you would be able to answer the questions in a better way. All right, guys. So this brings us to the end of the workshop, the end of session 4. I hope this was fruitful and it answered a lot of questions that you had in mind about the standardized tests, GMAT, GRE, and GAT. And I hope this helps you in deciding what is the best choice for you when it comes to these 3 tests. Thank you so much. And I wish you all the very best of luck. I hope you make the best choice and you succeed in the rest of the endeavors of your life. Thank you.